Every farmer has a machine he trusts with his life, but when respect fades, danger doesn't. And it makes you wonder, is the real threat the machine or the man behind it? And when you watch tractor accidents like this, things get even more chaotic. Let's start with the one that claimed most lives. 1. Narrow front rollovers. Old tricycle-style tractors were fast and light, but their narrow front end turned them into ticking time bombs. The two front wheels sat just inches apart, which made steering through cornrows easy, and side rollovers even easier. These tractors balanced on 3 points, not 4, so any slope, rut, or soft patch could make the whole machine tip. A 75-year-old Iowa farmer learned that the hard way when his tractor rolled on a slight incline, crushing him instantly. He wasn't going fast, just repositioning. Once that front axle lifted, the rear wheel lost traction and gravity took over. Even with perfect reflexes, you can't stop a rollover like that. The scary part? Thousands of these tractors are still used on small farms and in parades because they look vintage. Next, let's move to another missing feature that turned everyday work into deadly risk. 2. Tractors without ROPS or seatbelts. Before safety regulations kicked in, most tractors were just open platforms. No cab, no roll bar, no seatbelt. If a machine went over, the driver went with it. In one Iowa case, a 29-year-old man died when his old loader tractor flipped backward while hauling rocks. With no ROPS frame or seatbelt, he was thrown out and crushed in seconds. The fatal design flaw wasn't the load, it was the lack of protection. The entire idea of ROPS is simple. If you roll, the bar keeps you inside a safe space. Without it, you become the first point of impact. Many old-school operators still think experience replaces equipment, but it doesn't. No one can lean away from a rollover that happens in half a second. Next up, a design that demanded brute force and then bit back hard. 3. Flywheel start mechanisms. Before electric starters became standard, tractors were fired up with brute force. You'd grab a hand crank or spin the exposed flywheel to kick the engine into life. It sounds simple until the engine backfires. When that happens, the flywheel snaps backward with enough torque to break an arm or send you flying. Farmers used to wrap a rope around the wheel and yank. If the engine caught wrong, it'd rip your shoulder out or lash you across the face. Many lost fingers, wrists, even teeth to those unpredictable kickbacks. That's why electric ignition became more than just convenience. It was survival. Anyone who ever hand-started an old Alice Chalmers or Farmall knows that sound, that tension before the engine fires, and the pain when it doesn't. Next, let's move to a mistake that looks harmless until it flips the tractor backward. 4. Improper hitching above the drawbar line. Tractors are designed to pull from the drawbar, that low, solid anchor point near the rear axle. But some operators, trying to get more grip, hook the chain higher. It feels like it'll add strength, but it actually creates a deadly lever effect. When the load tightens, torque pulls upward instead of backward, lifting the front end until gravity takes over. In New York, a 71-year-old farmer made that same mistake trying to drag a log out of the woods. The cable snagged, and in a heartbeat, the tractor reared up, flipped over, and crushed him. Rear overturns like that are fast, less than a second from lift to impact. Even veteran operators can't react in time. The drawbar exists for a reason. It keeps the force low and even. Anything hooked higher becomes a trap. Modern tractors use fixed hitches and warnings for this exact reason, but old habits die hard. Next, we'll look at another overlooked danger that spins silently until it pulls you in. 5. Exposed PTO shafts. The power takeoff, or PTO, is what drives mowers, balers, and other implements. It's a spinning metal rod connecting the tractor to the equipment, and it's one of the most dangerous parts of the whole machine. At full speed, that shaft spins around 40 times per minute. It doesn't just catch loose clothing, it wraps it instantly. In Iowa, a 79-year-old farmer was pulled in when his coat snagged an unguarded PTO. He didn't even have time to reach for the ignition. Within seconds, he was gone. What's worse is that most PTO guards were removed by owners who thought they rattled too much or got in the way. Once they're gone, every cuff, glove, or shoelace becomes a liability. At that speed, you can't yank yourself free. That's why modern PTOs come with full-length shields and sensors that shut them down if opened. The rule's simple. If it spins, guard it. Now, let's move to a quieter problem that's absolutely fatal. 6. Non-synchronized transmissions. Old tractors weren't built for smooth shifting. Their transmissions were non-synchronized, meaning you couldn't just press the clutch and slide into another gear, you had to time it perfectly. Miss the rhythm, and the gears would grind, jerk, or even lock up. Farmers called it gear growl. and it could send a tractor lunging forward or rolling backward if you weren't careful. Many accidents happened when operators thought they were in neutral but weren't. A parked tractor could lurch ahead, crushing fences, tools, or worse. On slopes, it got deadly. One slip, and the machine would roll uncontrollably. Modern synchronized systems fixed this with gear matching and safer clutch mechanics, but older models still demand precision. One bad shift could pop the clutch, stall the engine, or send tons of steel crawling where it shouldn't. Up next, let's look at another hazard from that same era. 7. Open cabs without tie-in. For decades, tractor cabs were nothing more than a seat and a steering wheel. No roof, no shield, no frame. Operators sat completely exposed to flying debris, sunstroke, freezing wind, or in the worst cases, rollovers. A sudden flip meant the driver had no protection at all. Dust would choke your lungs, rain soaked the wiring, and falling branches or kicked up rocks could cause serious injuries. The open design made sense when fields were flat and speeds were slow, but once tractors got heavier and faster, it turned lethal. There's a reason ROPS and enclosed cabs became standard. Farmers were getting crushed, burned, and thrown. Today's enclosed cabs keep operators safe from everything, from heat stroke to hydraulic leaks. Yet many vintage machines are still used bare bones, just for small jobs. It's nostalgia mixed with risk. Next, we'll move to another spinning killer. 8. Rotating shafts and unshielded belts left. Before safety guards became law, exposed belts and shafts were everywhere on a tractor. They powered everything from grain augers to pumps, spinning fast enough to rip a person apart in seconds. Operators would step too close, or their clothing would brush against the drive belt, and that was it. One 17-year-old in Iowa lost his life after his shirt got caught in an unshielded PTO linked to a grinder mixer. The belt wrapped him in, and he never had a chance. These setups were death traps disguised as simple engineering. Shields were often removed for maintenance and never replaced, leaving bare machinery whirring at chest height. You'll still find some of these relics running in small barns today, spinning belts covered in grease, humming like they're harmless. They're not. Every farm safety class teaches the same rule now. If it moves, cover it. Now let's move from exposed machinery to another dangerous feature. 9. Early hand clutches. Old tractors came with hand clutches that demanded precision, timing, and raw arm strength. Instead of a foot pedal, operators had to pull or push a lever to control power. One wrong move and the tractor would jerk forward or roll backward. These clutches didn't engage smoothly, they snapped. On slopes, that sudden jolt could send the tractor lunging, or worse, stalling at the worst moment. Many farmers tried to ride the clutch by keeping it half engaged, but that just made things worse. The tractor could slip into motion on its own or lose control during heavy loads. Over time, the spring tension would weaken, causing random surges when the clutch finally caught. It wasn't uncommon for operators to lose balance and fall right under the wheels. Next, we'll move from stubborn controls to another design that doubled the danger. 10. The tricycle narrow front. The tricycle tractor design was popular for one reason: agility. With two small wheels up front and wide rears and back, farmers could weave between corn rows with ease. But this agility came at a massive cost: stability. The narrow front acted like a pivot point, meaning even a small slope could cause a rollover. When one rear tire hit a rut or soft soil, the whole tractor tipped over the front axis. These rollovers happened so fast that most operators couldn't even jump clear. Many deaths were recorded during low-speed turns or hillside work, not high-speed driving. The design flaw was baked in. A 3-point balance instead of 4 meant no forgiveness once gravity shifted. Some tried adding dual fronts later, but by then, thousands of injuries had already occurred. Next up is another fire hazard hiding in plain sight. 11. Gas tank over the engine. Putting the fuel tank directly above a hot engine seemed practical in the 1940s. Gravity-fed systems didn't need fuel pumps, but it also meant one small leak could turn the whole tractor into a rolling fireball. A cracked hose, loose fitting, or worn gasket could drip gasoline straight onto the manifold, where temperatures often hit hundreds of degrees. Fires would start silently, and by the time the operator noticed smoke, it was too late. The tank's location also made refueling dangerous. Spilled gas would vaporize instantly around the hot block. Farmers working long hours or refilling mid-job didn't always wait for the engine to cool down. Some tried makeshift fixes like wrapping lines in cloth or using electrical tape, which only made things worse. Many early tractors caught fire right in the field, leaving nothing but molten frames. Engineers eventually moved fuel tanks behind the seat or under the hood with shielding. But for years, tractors were built with literal bombs over the engine. If you thought that was bad, this next problem made stopping a tractor almost as hard as keeping it upright. 12. Minimal brake systems. Old tractors weren't known for stopping fast or at all. Most early braking systems used dry drum brakes that faded with heat or moisture. After a few hours in the field, they'd lose nearly all stopping power, especially on slopes. The pedals often worked unevenly too, so one rear wheel would lock while the other kept spinning, throwing the tractor sideways. Some farmers even had to use the clutch and gears just to slow down, which made downhill work terrifying. If you were towing a heavy load, forget it. The brakes were never designed to stop both tractor and trailer. On older machines, you could pump the pedal and feel it sink to the floor with no effect. Many rollovers happened after failed braking during turns or transport. Even on flat land, a stuck brake could cause sudden spinouts. Next, we'll move to another overlooked danger. 13. Poor lighting and reflectors. Taking a tractor onto a road is already risky. Taking one built without lights or reflectors? That's suicide. Older tractors weren't designed for road visibility. They had dim front lamps, no brake lights, and nothing on the back but a steel hitch. At night, or even during dusk, cars approaching from behind couldn't see them until it was too late. Many fatal crashes in the 1960s and 70s involved cars slamming into slow-moving tractors from the rear because they looked invisible from a distance. The introduction of the slow-moving vehicle triangle helped, but thousands of older tractors still operate without one. Add in dusty fields and foggy mornings, and it's a perfect storm. Some farmers tried taping flashlights or hanging lanterns to the fenders, desperate improvisations that barely worked. Poor lighting isn't just an inconvenience, it's a blind spot waiting to be hit. Next, we'll move from nighttime hazards to something every farmer used to dread. 14. Hard steel or pan seats. If you've ever seen those old curved metal seats on vintage tractors, you know exactly how brutal they look and feel. They were molded from bare steel, with a few drainage holes and no padding. After hours of bouncing across fields, they'd bruise your tailbone, strain your spine, and make you feel like you'd sat on a shovel. For older farmers, back injuries and slipped discs were almost expected. The vibration alone was enough to rattle bones, especially since most of those tractors didn't have suspension systems or rubber mounts. Add in the engine heat rising underneath, and you had a literal seat of pain. It might sound minor compared to other dangers, but chronic back damage ended countless careers long before retirement. Some people tried homemade fixes, horse blankets, rags, even old cushions tied down with rope. It barely helped. The design was pure function, zero comfort. Today, every modern tractor operator owes their lower back to that painful lesson. Next, we'll move from comfort to a design flaw that made entire tractors dangerously top-heavy. 15. Overly high center of gravity. A tractor's stability all depends on where its weight sits. Older models, especially ones with tall tires or front loaders, had dangerously high centers of gravity. It made them easier to flip than most people realized. A full bucket of soil or gravel could shift that balance instantly. Drive across a slope, hit one rut, and the whole machine could tip sideways in under a second. Operators sometimes thought counterweights would fix the problem, but if placed wrong, they made the issue worse. The higher the weight, the smaller the recovery margin. Many rollovers weren't caused by speed, they were caused by height. Even turning too quickly on level ground could pull one wheel off the soil. Today's tractors sit lower, with better balance and weight distribution, but plenty of older ones are still in use, the same ones that treat physics like an enemy. Next, we'll move to a feature that sounds simple but once caused arm injuries and accidents on nearly every farm. 16. No power steering. Before hydraulics took over, steering a tractor was a full-body workout. The heavy front ends, packed with iron and attachments, fought every turn. You'd muscle the wheel just to line up with a furrow, hit a rock or rut, and the wheel could jerk violently, sometimes spinning back so fast it'd slam your fingers or wrists. Farmers often called it wheel bite. Long hours of this left hands blistered and shoulders shot. On rough terrain, it became more than exhausting. It was dangerous. If your grip slipped during a turn, the tractor could veer straight into a ditch or fence line. Some operators even wrapped rags around the wheel for traction, which only made it harder to react in time. Power steering turned that fight into control, but before it came along, every turn was a gamble between muscle and momentum. Old-timers still remember ending the day with bruised palms and aching arms, and sometimes a steering wheel that nearly broke their hand. Our next pick is another hidden hazard that took lives. 17. Poor weight distribution. Weight balance sounds simple until you get it wrong. Too much weight in the front, and the rear tires lose traction. Too much in the back, and the front wheels lift straight off the ground. Tractors need counterweights to keep that balance right, but older models left it entirely up to the operator. And that's where accidents happen. Hauling a heavy plow or loader without proper ballasting could cause a sudden rear flip if the load snagged. Farmers sometimes filled tires with water or concrete to add traction, but uneven distribution made steering unpredictable. The center of gravity would shift with every bump or turn. Even something as small as an unbalanced mower deck could make the front end dance off the ground. Poor ballasting also wore out transmissions and brakes, creating chain reaction hazards over time. Modern tractors now come with automatic ballast calculators and built-in counterweight systems, but older rigs relied purely on experience and a lot of luck. And next, we'll move to a danger that made tractors boil over, literally. 18. Overheating radiators and boilovers. Before advanced cooling systems, tractors ran dangerously hot. Their radiators were small, their coolant mixes were weak, and their caps often had no pressure release. Long days under the sun made engines boil over like kettles. Steam would hiss out, scalding anyone nearby. Farmers working shirtless in the heat got burned just trying to refill water. Many made the mistake of opening the radiator cap too soon, releasing pressurized steam right into their faces. Rust, insects, or chaff could block airflow through the fins, and overheating could seize an engine or start a fire if fuel lines ran close. Some tried topping off with creek water, which only added minerals and corrosion. Modern radiators use overflow tanks and safety valves, but back then, heat was the enemy. Next, we'll move to another neglected hazard. 19. Minimal safety guards. Engine fans and belts are deceptively quiet killers. On old tractors, there were no protective housings, just exposed steel spinning inches from where farmers checked oil or adjusted timing. Those fans could slice through gloves, and those belts could catch sleeves in an instant. The front of the engine was basically a trap of fast-moving parts. Many accidents happened during quick fixes, when someone thought they could tighten something while the engine idled. One slip of a wrench, and the fan would hit it like a blade. Mechanics and farmers alike lost fingers or suffered deep gashes because manufacturers never bothered to add guards. Some fans were even metal instead of plastic, turning them into literal knives at high speed. And finally, we have one disastrous feature that claimed too many lives. 20. No automatic engine shutoff. Old tractors had no sensors, no cutoffs, ammo, and no fail-safes. Once the key turned, it was all manual control. If the engine overheated, oil pressure dropped, or the operator fell off, the machine just kept going. That meant tractors could run wild across fields after their drivers were thrown, crushing fences, machinery, or worse. Fires could start from overheated engines still running unattended. Some models would stall only when out of fuel, meaning a flipped or burning tractor could keep spinning for minutes. Automatic shutoff systems now cut ignition when pressure drops, when seat sensors detect no weight, or when a rollover is detected. But in the early days, everything relied on luck and reaction time. Countless accidents could have been prevented if engines simply stopped themselves.